The Department of Veterans Affairs is being accused of lacking compassion after denying a war widow extra time to claim financial assistance following her husband's death 6 years ago. Margaret Vandenberg is now appealing the decision so she can assess the Defence Home Owners Assistance Scheme to help her 3 sons. I spoke to Margaret earlier this week. Margaret, thank you so much for coming on to Weekend Edition. Tell us firstly a little bit about your case.
Well, Kane was in the Navy for 28 years and he died in a defence accident 6 years ago last week. At the time of his death, he was in receipt of a Defence House loan, which was automatically passed to me. In July of this year, I was selling our family home as I was moving and rang DVA to see how I get the loan transferred and was told that I wasn't entitled to it because I hadn't applied for the subsidy within 2 years. They said they had written to me, which they forwarded a copy to me. It was a 2-page letter. The first paragraph was condolences. The third last paragraph was where it stated that I had to apply for the subsidy certificate within 2 years. The letter was dated 2 weeks after Kane died and a week after his funeral. Both DVA and Defence told me to reapply for the subsidy certificate with extenuating circumstances, which I did, and both DVA and Defence have rejected that.
Margaret, I'm really, really sorry to hear about your loss. Tell us how hard it was for you to actually get your affairs in order, especially in such a short frame of time, especially when you are dealing with such incredible grief.
It's extremely difficult. Sudden death is the worst sort of grief. I had the 3 boys. I had the youngest, who was 16, living with me and completing his high school certificate at that time. My 2 other boys were in Wollongong and Canberra. 6 months after Kane died, my mother suffered serious chemical burns. I spent 9 weeks with her at Concord Burns Unit with my dad. They never went home after that, both into a retirement village. My dad died in 2015, which was also within that 2-year time frame to apply, and my mum 2017. So I've lost 3 of the most influential people in my life in 4 years.
Your supporters, Margaret, they're now asking for Defence Minister Linda Reynolds to intervene so you don't have to take your case to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. What's the latest with that?
I'd be happy to fly to Canberra and speak to the ministers at my own cost. I wrote to the DVA Minister on the 8th of August explaining my case and for his consideration. He hasn't responded. That letter was also hand-delivered to him on the 11th of August by another veteran benefit group. The DVA Secretary is well aware. I wrote to her last week and asked whether or not I was going to get a response from the Minister. I haven't heard back from her. I wrote to Defence again last week and stated that there was a section within the Act, which they have referred to, Section 18, which states in there that a subsidy certificate can be handed to a surviving partner without reapplying under certain circumstances, and I've asked Defence, you know, what that is. They told me last week they would write to me this week. I'm yet to hear from them. The DVA Minister also wrote to me in April on another matter, and he commended me for my work that I've done with Veterans Group and children through the RSL. I've donated over $50,000 of my own money to supporting veterans groups, and I've also sent 4 children to Kokoda through the RSL. So at this stage, I've heard nothing back with regard to my claim.
You've been through so much, Margaret. Do you think decisions like this could have attributed to veteran homelessness?
Most definitely. I suffered PTSD and depression. I'm still medicated and probably will be for life. I'm seeking to see a psychologist this week, just over the last 3 months, and, my depression has been exacerbated by all of this. The ironic thing is I'm a DVA Gold card holder. which, you know, ironically, DVA will be paying my expenses on that. I only read yesterday that there was 5,800 defence homeless people or veterans, and you know, I can guarantee you that the last thing on their mind, suffering mental illnesses and PTSD, would be to be applying for this certificate within 2 years of them getting out. You know, DVA and Defence have to stop paying lip service and help our veterans. It's like, you know, I have an analogy now. It's like when you go and buy a new car and everyone wants to help you out, which was what DVA were like with me in the first year. As soon as there's a problem, no one wants to know about your issues, and you know, DVA has now duck-shoved this to Defence. So, yeah, they need to start really helping our veterans.
Well, Margaret Vanderberg, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and I really wish you all the best in your appeal.
Thanks, Janie.